You're listening to the Heart Lessons podcast with me, Sarah Rieke. Real women, real stories, real faith. Hi friends, and thank you for joining me for this special Father's Day episode of Heart Lessons. With me today are three of my favorite dads, whose hearts are tender to God's whispers in their lives with regards to their individual fatherhood journeys. They speak much truth and wisdom about fatherhood and share what God has taught them along the way. I'm so truly blessed to have these men in my life influencing me and influencing my kids. First up, you'll hear from my dad, Pete. My dad has an amazing gift for all things mechanical. Basically, if it's broken, my dad can fix it. And he shows love through acts of service, so he's always so quick to say yes when I need help with anything handy. He's a great example of how to always be there for your kids. Here's what my dad had to say about fatherhood. Well, Daddy, thank you for joining me for this special Father's Day episode. So let's start out. Tell me a little bit about you and what you do and what fatherhood looks like for you these days.
Well, I'm Pete Martin. I'm a service technician for a major commercial food service equipment company. Fatherhood for me these days now is just kick back and watch my kids pay for all that they put me through. Just kind of teasing. No, just basically enjoying the results of the years of what I thought I was training my kids for, and waiting for that phone call of, hey, I got a flat tire, or hey, my water heater's leaking, or something like that, so I can hop to it and be Johnny on the spot.
Yeah, and you've definitely saved me a time or two with flat tires and water heaters, and you're probably thinking of all me. So, yeah. When you first became a dad, so that for you was when I was born, December 1985, what were your initial thoughts and feelings?
I can't say that I really had initial thoughts and feelings. I was young,
Yeah.
immature.
How old were you, 22?
85, I would have been 22.
Okay.
So, yeah,
It was a shock.
yeah, and not really, numb, I guess you can say it.
Yeah. It's pretty surreal, I think, your first time around. When do you think that changed? Do you think it took, like, weeks, months? When did you start to like me?
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It grew over time. I can't really put a timeline on it.
Yeah. What were, when you had kids in your home, were your goals for raising children?
Firstly, that they would learn to know Christ as their Savior very young. Goals were to have a loving, Christ-centered home. To always be there and do what I could to make their life special and fun and somewhere where they'd like to be at home.
And I guess you didn't say, but you don't just have me as a daughter, you have two daughters.
Right.
Yes.
Right, yes.
So, anyway, so I am 30, and then Michelle is 20, about to be 24.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's your fatherhood. Two girls. What is possibly your favorite memory as a father, or a moment that you thought, yep, I'm definitely a dad, which, could
Well,
be
I have a bunch of favorites.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind was the honey sandwich. Remember the honey sandwich?
I actually do have a memory of the honey sandwich.
Back in the day when I worked third shift, I would come home and have to take a nap. So you were very content, so you would entertain yourself by playing or watching video or something. And one day I get this little voice beside the bed, Daddy, look, I made you a honey sandwich. And of course, all the effort put into it, I had to eat it. And when I was asked if it was good, I said, that was a good honey sandwich. And to this day, when I eat honey, I think of it. And it was a lot of honey and a little bit of bread.
Yeah.
Basically, you took the whole jar and poured it on a couple of slices of bread. What led you to do that, I don't know.
I don't know either. It was good. I was trying.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What would your advice be to a first-time dad?
Well, I got several things. Be a good example. There's this country song that talks about how the dad is driving with the boy in the car. He slams the brakes, the kid's Happy Meal falls down, and the boy utters a 4-letter word.
Yes.
And the dad's like, how'd you learn to talk like that? And the boy's like, I've been watching you, Dad. So be an example. Watch what you say, what you do, and follow through when you say you're going to do something. I see so many times dads, moms, parents just, oh, I promise we'll do that tomorrow. Tomorrow never happens. And that hurts my heart to see that, because that's something I really hold dear.
Yeah. What is a heart lesson? This is the Heart Lessons podcast, so I have to ask this. I ask all the guests. A heart lesson that you keep leaning on these days to help you through your stage of fatherhood.
Well, now that my kids are grown and gone, it's kind of different, but leaning on that it doesn't always work out the way you want it. And when you pray and pray and pray for things, and God's answer is not always, yeah, here you can have it. It's not easy. I'm going through it with Evie and Charlie, pray for healthy babies, and they don't come. And sometimes God's way is not our way. So I lean on the fact that it's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be good, and that's what I've learned.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's all I had. Thanks for sharing and for chatting with me. And
albeit so short.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
My dad's heart lesson about not really knowing what God has in store for your kids is probably a really hard thing to walk out in real life. But like my dad said, it's so important to know that God has a plan for your children, even if it seems painful and confusing. And I think it's so important to trust that God still has the best for your kids, even if you can't see it. I hope when I have adult children and see them walking through hard things, I can remember that truth. Next up, you'll hear from my father-in-law, Dave. Dave is a local pastor and has always been a wonderful life counselor for me and Josh. We've benefited greatly from his wisdom in our lives, and that's something I'm truly grateful for. Here are Dave's reflections on fatherhood. Well, Dad, thank you for joining me for this special Father's Day episode.
I'm glad to be here.
So, would you just start out by telling me a little bit about who you are and what you do and what fatherhood looks like for you these days?
Okay. So, I am David Rieke. I am a pastor, been in pastoral ministry since 1987. I am the father of 3 boys, one of which is married to Sarah. And right now, of course, as a father of adult sons, I have only a little bit of responsibility in their lives, but hopefully I'm just trying to make them better at what they're already good at.
When you first became a dad, which I think was 1985, right? When Josh was born, October 1985. What were your initial thoughts and feelings?
It seems surreal. I remember I talked about Josh as that baby, and I told Teresa's mom, my wife's mom, that I was going to bring that baby over so she could see Josh. And I mean, I was very warm toward him, but I remember thinking it was strange to say, I'm going to bring my baby or my son. It was just very surreal, like this is really happening, but it doesn't seem quite right.
When do you think it sunk in for you?
Gradually over time, it became more and more natural, and being a father changes, literally every aspect of your daily routine. So I would say there was no aha moment, but pretty soon you realize that you're in this and everything is different and you'll never be the same.
Yeah, and it's not that baby anymore.
He's my baby, my little boy. Yeah.
What were, when you had little children at home, and maybe are your goals with raising children?
Wow. Well, raising the children, first of all, my prayer from the start has been that God would draw the children to Him. Hosea says, draw them with cords of love. And I always hope that the Lord would pull the children to Him. And I wanted to do what I could to help with that process. So we've always prayed that the Lord would first and foremost draw the children to Himself and then draw the children to us, because we always believed that if they wanted to please us, if we had their hearts, then the rest would work out.
What is your favorite memory as a dad, or possibly a moment when you thought, yeah, I'm definitely a dad now?
Favorite memory, wow.
Or just a standout memory. It doesn't have to be a favorite necessarily.
Yeah, how about if I do a quick one for each son?
Sure, yeah. That's
okay.
Fine.
So I have this memory of my firstborn Josh when he was in need of discipline, and he kept getting out of bed. He was a very good boy, but he kept getting out of bed, and he wanted water, he wanted to go to the bathroom, he wanted a snack, he always wanted something. And eventually I said, Joshua, Rieke, you get back in that bed, and I don't want to see you again until tomorrow morning unless the house catches on fire. And pretty soon he came out again and he said, Dad, I smell smoke. So we loved that, and it had a lot to do with discipline and relationships and how to negotiate. He was probably 4. So yeah, very cute. Then I have this great memory of Jed, that's my middle son, and I lost my keys, and I was carrying him, and he was about 2 years old, and I was sort of babysitting. I think it was a Sunday. We're getting ready for church, and I couldn't find my car keys, and I almost never lose my keys, so that's really weird. And he's just a little boy. He doesn't speak very well yet, and I said, so I was talking to him just knowing he wouldn't answer me. And I said, Jetty, you want to help Daddy find his keys? I don't know where my keys are. I was talking to him like that. And I opened the car door, and I was leaning in to see if they fell out of my pocket onto the seat or something like that. And all of a sudden, Jed, in his hoarse little voice, he pointed, he said, keys right there. And they were in the ignition. For some reason, I jumped out of the car and left him in the ignition all night. And so he was just a little boy. He didn't speak very well, but he was so happy. He said, keys right there. He was helping Daddy. So that was cute. And then one from Luke, maybe a really good memory from Luke's lifetime. When he was a little boy, he took karate lessons. And I remember when he was very small, maybe, 5 years old, and he broke a board by kicking it when he was like 5 years old. And we thought that was so great, and everybody cheered for him. And so that was lots of fun.
That's sweet. He probably felt pretty big, too.
Yes, he felt very big. Yeah.
What would your advice be to a first-time dad?
Well, the hardest thing I've ever done is parenting. Marriage is hard just because there's so much to know. And I've had a great marriage, but marriage is hard. Someone has said that marriage converts us, and it teaches us not to be selfish. Well, the other thing that converts us is parenthood.
Yes, amen.
And it's very hard. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. It's also probably the most rewarding thing that you'll ever do. And the whole secret is that you've got to have your child's heart. If he wants to please you, then everything's going to be fine. But if there comes a breakdown in the relationship and he no longer wants to please you, then everything falls apart. So in the book Tuesdays with Maury, Maury is dying, if you don't know the story, and his friend Mitch, a former student, has become a journalist, and he's interviewing Maury about various things. And there's a place in the book where Mitch is telling his old friend Maury that his brother doesn't really have a good relationship with Mitch, and Mitch is very sad and he's upset about it, and he asked Maury what went wrong, And Maury said, there is no formula for relationships. Relationships are negotiated in loving ways, with room for both parties, for what the other person wants and needs, and what he can do, and what their lives are like. And that's true even in parenting. Relationships with your children are negotiated in loving ways, and there's no formula. You are doing this choreography, a dance, and each person has needs and wants, and you'll be constantly meeting your children halfway, and hopefully they love you and want to please you, and they'll meet you halfway. And if you have their hearts, then everything will be okay.
So you've mentioned having their hearts a couple times. What's the key to gaining your child's heart? What would you say?
My wife was really helpful with this. Teresa would sometimes sit down with the boys when things were going awry, and she would humanize the situation. She would say something like, Josh, I would die for you. I would do anything in the world for you. And when you treat me like that, how do you think that makes me feel? And a lot of times when she was talking like that, she would cry. And a lot of times the sons would also break down and cry. And they were no longer thinking of us parents as adversaries then, but as real human beings who also get hurt and who love them dearly and have wishes for them. And when it was humanized, when they came to love us and want to please us again, then the relationship was good, and again, you're negotiating things in loving ways, not as opponents.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm taking notes here myself. I'll be honest. So this is the Heart Lessons podcast. I ask everyone what their heart lesson is. So what's the heart lesson that you keep leaning on these days in your stage of fatherhood?
Mm-hmm. Well, all of my boys are really fine young men. They have all contributed something to the world since they were born, and especially now as young men. You might say that, if I were to die today, I'm leaving the world better than I found it, because those 3 boys are worth more than one of me. And that's the right idea. I don't necessarily think that I have been a great father. And if you wanted to hear regrets, I could share memories of all those regrets too, certain things that I did that I really did badly. But the heart lesson is that fatherhood is great, and it is probably the best thing that I've ever done. And again, the heart lesson would also relate to that idea of negotiating relationships in loving ways. And I think my kids would say that, throughout the whole process, we've been negotiating. And even now, as, a father of adult sons, I demand very little from them. And they don't have to please me. But I think they want to please me, and I certainly want to please them. And so there's just sort of a mutuality to the whole thing that's very satisfying. So heart lessons, parenthood is the best thing I've ever done, and negotiating the relationships doesn't end when the children leave the home. That continues today.
Well, thank you for all of your wisdom. Thank you for sharing, and I appreciate you being on today.
Thank you for inviting me, Sarah. I love you.
I thought it was so interesting that both my dad and Dave mentioned how they fell more in love with their babies and their role as a father as time went on. So to any new dads out there who are listening, who are still adjusting to their role as a father and feeling uncomfortable with still feeling uncomfortable, you heard it from 2 great men. It'll happen over time. No worries. I think my favorite thing Dave said was the importance of having your kids' hearts. Not having their hearts means not really influencing them in a meaningful way, and possibly not being able to pass your faith along to them. As a parent, I hope to always shepherd my children in a way that will impact their hearts. And last but certainly not least is my husband Josh, who you heard from in episode 11. But he's back today to share about fatherhood. So it's been such a privilege for me to watch him grow into his role as a father. I was there the very moment when he first laid eyes on each of his babies, and it's something I'll never forget. He was smitten and forever changed, that's for sure. And to see him with them now as they grow is unbelievably precious. God bless my kids with an amazing father, and I'm so thankful. And here are Josh's words on fatherhood. Hey, Josh.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on to this special Father's Day episode of Heart Lessons.
Thank you for having me.
And I have to tell you, you're the first repeat guest on this show.
Oh,
yes.
I'm honored.
Yes. Yeah. So today we're just going to talk about fatherhood in celebration of Father's Day. So for those of for the listeners that weren't able to listen to your previous episode that you recorded with me, tell everybody a little about you and what you do and what fatherhood looks like for you these days.
Okay. My name is Josh Rieke. I'm your husband.
Yay!
I am a nurse anesthetist, so I do anesthesia for a living, which I like very much. And these days, fatherhood looks like being the dad of a 5.5-year-old boy, and my daughter is about to turn 2. Our daughter is about to turn 2, so they're fun kids. It's a fun time to be a dad.
Yeah, lots of energy around here.
Right.
Yeah. The daily requests after dinner time are for...
Yes, after dinner wrestling and punching.
Yeah. When you first became a dad, what were your initial thoughts and feelings? So that was for Mike, so that was December 2010 for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's very exciting. You don't know what to expect. I mean, you've never been a parent before, so you definitely feel the initial weight of responsibility of someone else relying on you for everything, and also learning how to be a different kind of person to this little guy. So you've never been a dad before, so what is it like to be a dad? You have to figure that out kind of on the fly almost. No one can ever be truly prepared for it. So you feel that weight of responsibility of, okay, this is awesome, but I mean, yeah, it's all good, but you also feel like I have an important job to do starting from now until, who knows, maybe for the rest of your life. You'll always be a dad.
Yeah.
And figuring out what that means. Then I also remember thinking that, I don't know, I thought about my parents, and you're like, wow, my parents did this for me, and then you come to appreciate what your parents did for you more, because now you see their side of it. And then I remember also thinking it was interesting, the parallels of how I felt for Micah when he was born, of course when Jocelyn was born, the parallels of what it meant for God to be our Father, and those really warm, those and very intense feelings of love and affection that you've never felt quite that way before, and thinking God our Father, they talk about God being our Father, and that takes on a whole new meaning when you feel those really intense feelings of love for this little person that needs you. And I thought it's the first time probably I ever understood in that before.
Yeah.
For sure. I thought that was, a lot of intense feelings.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Well, and I had to laugh when he said about, when he said the weight of responsibility, because that was probably the slowest you've ever driven before.
Oh yeah, on the way home from the hospital, you're so self-aware of every little silly thing, because you have, all of a sudden you're driving with a little baby in the back. Yeah, that's hilarious. That was a very, you're 10 and 2 all of a sudden for no apparent reason.
That's funny. What are your goals in raising your children?
I guess, I don't know if it's probably a good exercise to actually write this down or something.
I'm taking notes.
Maybe my goal is to set some actual goals. I don't know, you want to see your kids grow up to be, I don't know, people that you would like. You want people to like them, you want them to be likable, you want them to have strong personal character, to find, all the different things that they're good at and enjoy to do. You just want your kids to be happy. So I've always wanted to give my children every opportunity to find those things that they liked. And obviously, our son is 5.5, so we have a lot of time. There's a lot of things we haven't experienced or done yet with them, but I always think, whatever they're interested in, you give them the opportunity to try different things and to figure out what they're good at and what they are happy doing, and to give them every opportunity to succeed and do those things. And to just do your best to raise them to be people of strong character that people like. You want them to end up like someone that you would want to be with. I don't know.
Yeah, and it gives them an advantage in life if they're
of course.
Yeah.
If they're well liked and they
adjust well.
They learn how to work hard and they learn how to be with people with good social skills. I mean, those are all things you hope that you yourself have developed over time, and that you hope you can try to pass on to your kids as early as possible. That's what I hope to do.
What is a favorite memory or moment that you thought, yep, I'm definitely a dad?
It's hard to think of one. It's hard to think of one moment.
Tell me many. Tell me many. Tell me all of them.
I think I feel like that now as much. Now that Micah is more interested in things that I'm doing and wanting to kind of be side by side, I get that feeling a lot nowadays. Sometimes it's hard when they're babies. You feel like, you're like taking care of babies. You're a dad because you're taking care of these little babies. But when they're a little bit older, to start wanting to participate or be with you or do things, I think that makes you feel like you remember when you were a kid. I remember when I was a kid and my dad was out working on the car, and I guess I was never very interested in working on the cars or anything, but you wanted to be with him, so you'd hang out and learn what the tools were and all that. Like, you remember doing that as a kid. And so now when I have Micah out with me, asking about when I was like fixing the lawnmower and he wanted to help, or when we're out working on the yard or working out or doing any of those things where he wants to be side by side with you, that's a very good dad feeling. It's fun to do that. And then a different kind of dad feeling, having Jocelyn and all the cute little girly things. So that's the other side of it. Anytime you get to spend like special little times going out to breakfast, or I don't know, times when you're gone or something, and we have just time, me and the kids together, and those are happy dad times. Do you have any suggestions for dad moments? Because I'm going to turn the tables and ask you.
I'm not a dad.
I know. No. Moments where you've observed and you're like,
oh, okay.
Interestingly, interested in observing me being a dad.
Well, like you said with Jocelyn, it's very sweet that you're like, I need to learn how to braid. I need to learn how to braid hair.
Yeah. I have to learn how to take care of tiny girls.
Yeah.
It's fun.
And you've become well versed in superheroes, but learning the Disney princesses now.
Right.
And
the girl side of the equation.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I think Micah is just so loves the punching / wrestling time after dinner, and just watching you be tired at the end of the day, but still say like, I'd love to go punch with you, but that's what does he call it? Punch time? Yeah.
Do you wanna? And then he'll
just hold up his fist.
Yeah. He won't even say.
He does like the Irish, what is it called? Like the Irish fighting stance.
Yeah.
Come on, Dad. So that's just really sweet for me to see.
And then I work out in the garage, and then lots of times Micah wants to come out there, and then he'll want to kind of see what weights he can lift, and all that. I think that's funny.
It's just fun. Yeah, letting them be
fun
part of our
stuff.
lives. Yeah. And having Micah choose to be with you is, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's what you want to be able to happen. Yeah.
Because he's at the phase now where he may or may not want to just be with me all the time.
Right.
Which is fine. I recognize that as healthy behaviors.
You want to see your little boy do man stuff.
Yeah.
And you hope to be the one to teach him, and the one that he wants to do man stuff with, at least for a while.
So what would your advice be to a first-time dad?
Oh, boy.
Don't say don't do it.
No, being a dad is awesome. I don't know, just...
Well, every time I've said, what's your advice to a new groom, you say, don't do it. Like, don't get married. I'm like, that's not fair. You can't
That's not true
that.
either.
That's your line.
Being married is great. Being a dad is awesome. I don't know. I think a lot of being a dad is being a kind of flexible. You have to... It's a learning process, and you sort of have to... Don't think you have it figured out in the beginning, because, each kid is going to be different. You have to learn how to interact with them differently, and their different personalities, and you're going to end up punishing them kind of differently and doing different things with them. So you have to be kind of flexible and don't have your mind made up on very strictly on exactly how you're going to do things, because on a day-by-day basis you have to assess and reassess the way that you've interacted with your kids, and the way that maybe you've scolded them or punished them, or the way that you played with them, or the things you've said. It's definitely it's a daily not a task. Yeah, it's not a task, but you should be reevaluating your own performance on a daily basis and constantly trying to get better. So I don't know.
That's good.
Yeah. I think that we've talked about that lots of times with parenting. It's always you'll
fluid.
come up. Yeah, definitely fluid, because when your kids change too all the time, getting older, they need different things, and you may realize something that was working is no longer working, or now they need something different from you, or I don't know. Yeah, don't get stuck in a rut.
Yeah, that's good. So this is Heart Lessons, and I ask everybody who comes on. So what's a heart lesson that you keep leaning on these days to help you through your stage of fatherhood? Help you in your stage of fatherhood?
I don't know that I have something in particular that I personally keep going back to for encouragement or strength. Nothing like in particular, but something I'm more acutely aware of now is that your kids are always watching you, and especially with the 2-year-old, everything gets copied, and it's not less with Micah, who's the 5-year-old. He doesn't copy me less than Jocelyn does. She just parrots everything.
Yeah, she just repeats it.
They're watching the way that you interact with them, and the way I interact with you, and the things I do. So they're learning how to be people by watching me. So that's, when I think of that helps you decide how to act, and maybe what you shouldn't continue to do. The mistakes. It's easier to see the mistakes that you make if you consider that they're watching everything that you do, and they'll probably be the ones doing it next if you continue those things. So I think that idea puts into perspective, the way that you should be acting in front of your kids. If you want, I want them to grow up to have good character, and if I'm not demonstrating those traits, I'm the one that's supposed to be showing them how to be, grown up, how they should try to act. So that's something that I've kept in mind.
Interestingly enough, that's what my dad said. Yeah, so...
You have the little ones looking up to you.
Yeah.
It's a big responsibility.
Big responsibility. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for coming back on my show.
Thank you. It was lovely being back. Thought you'd never ask.
I almost didn't.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, babe.
I loved that both my dad and Josh mentioned the fact that little eyes are always watching, and it's so crucial to set a good example for them. I personally see Josh striving to do that every day, and I'm always so impressed and actually challenged with how quickly he apologizes to our kids if he feels he hasn't set the best example in that moment. I think that simple act of apologizing communicates so much to these little ones, not the least of which is that even daddies make mistakes and aren't above asking their little ones for forgiveness. I love that so much. I hope you enjoyed this special episode of Heart Lessons honoring my favorite dads. If you have a chance today, head over to my Instagram, Sarah_Rieke, and tell me about your dad. Memories, stories, heart lessons he's taught you. I would love to hear more about the men you are celebrating this weekend. If you're a regular listener and haven't yet left a review on iTunes, please do so. Positive ratings and reviews are what motivate others to listen to the show, and so I would really appreciate you doing that for me. Thank you again for listening. I hope you have a great rest of the week and a great weekend celebrating the fathers and father figures in your life. And as always, I hope you were able to come away with a heart lesson of your own to help you draw closer to the Lord.